Legacy SIAM systems weren't designed exactly built with autonomous web-scale AI agents in mind. What are the big things traditional SIAM providers are missing when it comes to securing, scaling, and granting access to these non-human identities?
You nailed the major one, which is the scale side of things. I think that's going to end up being a bit of an Achilles heel for a lot of organizations that may simply use their existing identity solutions and turn on features that allow agentic workloads to happen, whether that's something as simple as OAuth, right, and just enabling OAuth authentication for AI agents and their own MCP or other specifications on that side. What they're going to find is that scale all of a sudden drastically balloons from what they're used to from an interaction perspective.
If we imagine a future where AI agents are essentially coworkers and even customers in their own right, what's the biggest long-term change you think we'll see in the industry and in terms of security practices over the next 5 to 10 years?
This is one question that keeps me up a lot at night, honestly, because what I struggle with still in the industry is how we're going to handle when there has to be a human in the loop. Unfortunately, this ends up being one of those areas where there's a lot of weakness just in the design. And there's not really a good way around that because you need agents to be authorized at some level. A lot of times they can work autonomously.
Welcome to the Security Strategies Podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Alejandro Leal. I'm a senior analyst at Kuplinger Cole, where I specialize in identity and access management and other cybersecurity topics. In this episode, we're joined by Jeffrey Hickman, Head of Customer Engineering at Ori, and we will be talking about customer identity and access management, AI agents, and the urgent need for a new type of self-managed identity solutions to help enterprises secure the next generation of trusted web-scale agentic AI. Hi, Jeffrey. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today, Alejandro?
Good. Thank you. Happy to have you on board. For years, SIAM has been about managing human customers, onboarding them, authenticating them, and making sure access is both seamless and compliant. But with AI agents entering this picture, the definition of a customer itself is changing. So to kick things off, I'd love to get your perspective on how the rise of AI agents is reshaping the conversation around SIAM. It feels like the topic has become really urgent for technical leaders. Why do you think that is the case?
That's a great question. I think it's multifaceted, why that's becoming such a pressing issue for technology leaders. First, I think that with any new emerging technology, there's always a kind of a race to embrace it first. From a business side, we're seeing a lot of investment in AI. We're seeing a lot of actual users, consumers leveraging AI in their day-to-day lives, right? It's a consumer shift. And I think that business pressure to the technology leaders is a big piece of the puzzle of why there's so much kind of motivation to do something here. And then to be honest as well, AI at a first kind of glance and look looks like magic to a lot of people, even technology people, right? Until you kind of really get immersed in it and kind of understand the concepts, a lot of it's just, hey, this thing's talking to me, right? And it's understanding things and it's answering questions. It's doing actions autonomously. And that always, I find, with any new technology that kind of starts to do that stuff, there's always an inflection point of, well, we need something new to solve the old challenges here. As well. And so everyone starts kind of looking like, well, how am I going to, this is a new paradigm. How am I going to solve the traditional, identity challenges or traditional access challenges or whatever they are in this new paradigm? And so I think those two things, the business pressure and then, hey, this is new technology and this looks a little bit like magic. It's not something I've seen before, kind of leads to this boiling point that we're at now where people are really kind of pressured to find a solution for it.
Absolutely. As you say, it's a new paradigm. And I think that the biggest issue right now is rigidity. Traditional SIAM is built for predictable human-driven interactions. So legacy SIAM systems weren't designed exactly built with autonomous web-scale AI agents in mind. So from your point of view, what are the big things traditional SIAM providers are missing when it comes to securing, scaling, and granting access to these non-human identities?
Yeah, I think you nailed the major one, which is the scale side of things. I think that's going to end up being a bit of an Achilles heel for a lot of organizations that may simply use their existing identity solutions and turn on features that allow, agentic workloads to happen. Whether that's something as simple as OAuth, right, and just enabling OAuth authentication for AI agents and their own MCP or other specifications on that side. I think what they're going to find is that scale all of a sudden drastically balloons from what they're used to from an interaction perspective. And the reason why I think is kind of interesting, and I wasn't fully sold on this initially when I started kind of exploring the AI world, but over time I've become much more so, which is a single human with an interaction, right? That's one login, one action that I'm taking as an individual. With AI agents, it's not just one anymore. It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5. We've kind of heard this term, if you've been reading a lot of these AI articles, that humans become kind of the orchestrators or the managers of these AI agents. And now we've taken what used to be a single human interaction, right, of me logging into something, reading some information, and we've now multiplied that by 5, right? We've said now, hey, there's 5 agents all going out there and getting information, all that have to have identity, all that have to log into things. That's now created this increase in scale. So if before you were handling your authentication loads just fine, right, with your expected monthly average users that we're accessing, I can only imagine, and from the customers that we've talked to, we've started to see this creep up, where all of a sudden, as they've enabled AI workloads, they realize, oh, wait a second, there's not just one authentication that's happening for one user a day, there's 5, sometimes 10, depending on what the user's doing and depending on the content that the AI agent's accessing. And then you throw in another layer to it, which is like the AIs that are acting autonomously without human in the loop, right? That are just doing things like through needing to, hey, just behind the scenes, I need to make a connection and get some information or do an action or things like that. And then that's another layer on top of it that's not human directed, but another bit of scale that has to be accounted for. I think, security in that is always challenging because usually when you're dealing with scale, you're just trying to increase capacity and security almost sometimes ends up being an afterthought, just traditionally. Fortunately, I think that a lot of the specifications that we use in legacy SIAM still apply to AI. OAuth it being the kind of cornerstone was really meant for like the service to service authentication initially, right? Which is great for the autonomous agents. And then things like OpenID Connect laying on top of it for like a 3-legged authentication process is great for when you need that human in the loop. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel there, but you need to make sure that your solution for that is scalable, right? Too. Because there's a lot of solutions out there that you might have rolled your own or maybe using an existing vendor who may not be able to scale with that agentic workload. And those scale problems lead to security problems, whether it's because you're running too fast and you can't think about the security stuff, or it exposes security issues because at a certain scale, things break and fall apart and leave holes and gaps and stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes. I think it's not only about scalability, but also about adaptability. And I think that's the area where legacy vendors can really provide, especially as we see emerging use cases. It's important for organizations to remain adaptable. But going back to your previous answer, I think the agents per human concept is very interesting because it really amplifies everything we've talked about: scale, compliance, security. Could you maybe unpack that a bit? Like, for example, how does managing something like 800 million transactions a week or dealing with compliance when training LLMs on sensitive data work?
Yeah, extremely complex. It's difficult at that level of scale to deliver experiences that are like within what we've come to expect from web scale kind of use cases. I'll give you an example of this. Right now in the AI kind of, we'll quote unquote call it an arms race, right, where new models get released every month, it seems like, or every quarter, or whatever it is on that side. You can literally watch these spikes of authentication that are happening around the globe when this happens. And not just for those AI services that are releasing a new LLM model. It's also all the downstream stuff with the advent of things like MCP and agents, right? We're seeing like all the kind of the turn up of like, hey, now I'm testing it because I'm testing this new model. It's connected to all my stuff, right? That I have, whether it's Google Drive or Calendar or whatever it is, it's connected to all those things. There's authentication that all flows through through that entire process, which kind of hits the scale issue on that side. And I think that human to multi problem there. One challenge that I've seen personally with this is the context around what that individual agent's allowed to do, all right, what information it's allowed to gather. And this is a very interesting area because I don't think this is solved at all well by legacy IAM vendors. It's something that we're kind of trying to fit a solution around. I've seen proposals in different working groups or things like, hey, just use the scopes and OAuth. But that's pretty limited, right? You can't, that could maybe tell me that I get access to this specific service, but it doesn't go nuanced beyond that. A good use case that I've seen around this is I was working with a customer that's building an AI agent to help them query financial documents. And in a lot of cases, there's financial advisors that only have access to not just a specific customer, but only a specific type of financial document. How do you get that granular? Are you going to build your scope chain that deep? That doesn't quite work. So I think that there needs to be a really hard look on how permissions work around this world as well, especially in multi-agents. How do you make sure that you're still following least privilege, something that we've come to learn in the identity industry that's really important, and bring that same concept onto your AI agents needs that exact same paradigm. That we shouldn't treat them any differently than a human. They still need that low level permission. But this is something that I think Ori is well positioned with as well, because we can bring different pieces in to help solve these problems, right? You talked about adaptability, being able to bolt on something, right? Like just, hey, I need an OAuth solution, right? My current one doesn't scale. Can I just bolt that on? Great. That should be something that you should be able to do easily on that side. And same with permissions. I need to be able to build this internal data source of my own LLM that understands permissions. Great. That's something that I think a lot of organizations are going to need, and you need to be able to be flexible to deliver that.
It seems to me that the challenges are not necessarily new, but they're more magnified to a degree we've never had to confront before. And you talked about adaptability, and one of the things that stand out about Ori's approach is the idea of giving organizations control, which is a real contrast to the black box SaaS IAM model that we see in the market. Could you maybe walk me through how tools like Ori Hydra and Ori Kratos make it possible for enterprises to maintain control and flexibility, especially with these challenges that we've been talking about?
I think today with identity, a lot of people have seen it. I'm going to make an analogy to crypto, right? We've heard for years, especially if you've been a previous programmer, you've heard don't roll your own crypto. Everyone says that, right? If you don't understand it really deeply, right, don't roll it yourself. You're gonna cause problems. And I think the same has generated around identity. Don't roll your own identity. That's pretty. I see it a lot on social media. People talking about, hey, why shouldn't I do my own auth stack? I can just do a jot and I'm done, right? And you'll get the comments that say, don't roll your own authentication. I'm super happy and pumped to see that, but I think we've swung that pendulum almost too far, right? Where it's like, hey, just fire it off to a service. Who cares what's happening up there? They're going to do it all for you. You're going to get your session back and you're going to run off with it. And I think maybe for early prototyping, kind of getting something to market, that works really well, right? Because you don't have the bandwidth to kind of figure that out. However, I think you're going to start seeing cracks. And we've seen this, right? When you kind of do that behavior where you just send things off, you're going to see cases where, hey, the business wants XYZ to happen. And we have no idea how that's being processed right now. We have no observability of that, right? We can't get into the black box system or the cloud system where we've sent everything off to. And so we just have to accept and kind of make workarounds, right? And hey, when the user comes back, we'll disrupt their workflow and do X, Y, and Z. I think those are poor trade-offs, right, for user experience. And what Ori allows organizations to do is to come in and instead say, hey, you're going to own this top to bottom, right? You can see exactly what the code's doing. You're going to get enterprise support to make sure that it's running in production and can support all the throughput that you would expect. But you're going to get that level of observability and control to deploy this how you want it, where you want it, and tell it exactly to do what you want it to do. I'm reminded of a case with another customer that was struggling with custom claims in their tokens, right? Relatively trivial thing. Right? It's hey, I need to add some claims. I want it to look a certain way because my downstream applications expect that way. Maybe they're legacy applications that I can't change, and it needs to be this way. And their existing vendor was flattening the claims. Didn't tell them that, but they were just flattening it out. They weren't nesting it, right? And they couldn't figure out what was happening. They couldn't figure out the claim language. And when they started looking at Ori, they simply went to the code repo and said, oh, you're based on your open source repo. We can see exactly what's happening here. Is that any different in your cloud version or your self-managed version? No, it's exactly the same. And they were able to get that consistency that they wanted, right? It's a small little thing, but that I think illustrates the advantages of being able to self-manage a solution using open source solutions because you're able to see what's inside of them. And then also, in a lot of cases, contribute back too, right? Be able to say, hey, like this is what my organization needs. Maybe other people will need it, and being able to help the entire ecosystem and not just be this some, black box SaaS or black box legacy on-premise service that I'm running on that side that I have no control over, and maybe some limited customization, but I really can't get in there and figure out, how to drive this forward.
Exactly. I think control is the key word here. From my experience talking to organizations, it seems like some of them have a desire to control, to build, but there's also the fear. So there's this tension whether to buy or to build. And I think that's where Ori's modular approach is compelling, because it gives enterprises the ability to self-manage, to embed identity directly into their stack. And the value is visibility. So to know exactly what's happening at every stage, as you mentioned. So let's say, looking to the future, moving forward, if we imagine a future where AI agents are essentially coworkers and even customers in their own right, what's the biggest long-term change you think we'll see in the industry and in terms of security practices over the next 5 to 10 years?
This is one question that keeps me up a lot at night, honestly, because what I struggle with still in the industry is how we're going to handle when there has to be a human in the loop. I currently think that this is, not currently, I have thought for a long time, unfortunately, this ends up being one of those areas where there's a lot of weakness just in the design. And there's not really a good way around that, because you need agents to be authorized at some level. A lot of times they can work autonomously, but recently I'm gonna bring up a current topical example because I think it's interesting. There's been some AI companies that have enabled payments on their platform to be able to buy things, right? They've partnered with different, e-retailers, and you can go now tell your AI agent, hey, go find the top one, reviewed one of these and buy it for me. That's awesome, right? But you need a human in the loop for that, right? You can't just have the AI agent go, hey, I'm going to buy this and not tell the user anything. It's got to go back to the user, say, hey, this is the one I'm going to buy. It's this amount. Do you approve this transaction, right? The thing that I worry about with that is right now it's still the Wild West with AI agents. There's a lot of different tools out there, a lot of people using a lot of different things. And I think phishing with AI agents is going to become even worse for the time period until we really iron this out. It's one of the things that keeps me up at night, because I worry about my parents, my siblings who are less technical, right? Going and getting some sort of prompt from this new chatbot they're using on a site to help them purchase something that was maliciously injected, right? Or some sort of prompt manipulation was happening behind the scenes. So that area, I think we really need to pay special attention to, of how are we going to ensure that there is some level of kind of authenticity to those human in the loop moments. And I think there's technology today that can help with that, right? I think there's things like using device-bound credentials like passkeys, right? Or even non-device-bound, but secure-bound credentials, right? Like a passkey can help with that, to at least say from the user perspective, that's really authoritative from an authentication standpoint. There's URL matching, hash matching, all that fun sort of stuff that goes into the passkey kind of paradigm. I think there's technology like that we can adapt to this same case. I don't have a magic solution for that today, but it is the thing that I think is going to be kind of the next evolution, right? First, we're setting the boundaries on what AI agents can do, how they authorize themselves, what permissions they have, right? And then, there's all the technical transports and communication, all that stuff that doesn't really it has security is required, right? You need to have a secure transport and all that stuff, but less to do with the user interaction. I think once that's solved, then this is kind of the immediate, in my mind, the immediate next thing. Is, okay, when there is a human in the loop, how are we going to make sure that's really done in a way that's, as secure as possible and also has a great user experience? Because I don't want to have to jump through, hey, put your 17-character password in here, right? And then we'll look for the email that comes with the one-time code that you got to put in. Like, I would want something a little more elegant. But that also excites me, keeps me up, but excites me because it's opportunity for innovation and to do something new. So I'm excited to see what the industry comes out with on that side as well.
Exciting times. But yes, we shouldn't sacrifice security over user experience or the other way around. I think that the examples that you mentioned, people that are maybe from the older generations or younger generations that are perhaps not very educated in how fast the industry is changing, it's a reminder that organizations need to provide these capabilities as long as they solve real problems and they don't just add different use cases just for the fun of it, or just because the competition is doing it, or because it sounds cool to have AI agents. I think that vendors have to focus on explaining why certain features are really going to make a difference and how they're going to solve the problems that organizations face. It's a conversation that we had earlier before today's podcast, but I thought it was worth mentioning again.
Yeah, I agree. If I could just add one more point about that too, I think what's exciting too here as well about like the entire space and where the future is going is that there's technologies today that we've been using for years that still can help us, right? So it's not, we don't have to throw everything away. We just have to look at what we have, use what we can today to solve today's business challenges, right? As securely as we can, and then use that as ways to learn to evolve those standards. I mean, I'm excited. I don't know if you've watched like some of the working groups and some of the standards bodies around like things like OAuth and OpenID Foundation and things along those lines and other identity pieces. The amount of draft publications and proposals that are getting pushed through has increased. Not massively, but it's increased, which is exciting, right? I mean, how many other technology things can you think about have like increased the amount of ideas of how to solve them from a technology angle? I mean, let alone the new specifications and stuff that are out there. So it's exciting because, again, modern stuff, or the stuff that we're doing modern today, right? The stuff that, you know, we should all be using, right? Around modern technologies can still be used. And then to be able to see the iteration over that over the next 5 to 10 years, as an identity person who's been doing this for many years now, over 10 years, like that's exciting. I love seeing the evolution of the entire industry and just look forward to what's to come on that side.
Very well said. And that leads me to the last question. If you had just 60 seconds to leave CISOs with one key takeaway from this conversation, what's the message you want them to remember?
What I would say for CISOs is that, you know, look, AI does look like magic on the surface. Like when we all first looked at it, right? It looks amazing, right? What it can do. But really, we can't let the under the hood technology be magic as well, right? We can't just send those things out and expect the best. We need that control. And if you're an organization that's looking to control that full identity stack to understand not just how your humans are logging in, but also how your agents are logging in and whatever the next iteration of that is coming on, you really would do yourself a service at looking at technologies that are embracing modern standards, give you that control, that observability, and that adaptability to be installed, managed how you want it and where you want it. And I think that's something that you really should take a deep look at because it's going to set you up for the best success in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us today. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope that you took a lot away from today's podcast. And for further information on what we talked about, please head over to ori.com. And we'll be back next week with another episode in our podcast series. Until then, make sure to subscribe on all major platforms and follow the conversation on our socials at EM360Tech on X and LinkedIn. And for more great daily content, head over to our website, em360tech.com.